For centuries, men claimed the gods were silent. Temples crumbled into dust, sacred fires burned out, and the old hymns became nothing more than stories whispered to children afraid of the dark. War became a matter of politics, not prophecy. Kings ruled by steel and strategy, not by divine mandate. And yet, beneath the surface of every battlefield, beneath the soil soaked with blood and forgotten promises, something endured. It did not scream. It did not demand worship. It waited. The continent of Valor stands divided between three great powers, locked in a war that has lasted longer than most men's lifetimes. The Iron Dominion, a militaristic empire that teaches its sons that dying in conquest is the purest form of prayer. The theocracy of Loom, governed by blind oracles who claim to hear divine whispers in their dreams. And the fading kingdom of Idrath, once prosperous, now desperate enough to seek strength in places no crown should ever look. Decades of conflict have hardened cities into fortresses and turned farmland into graveyards. Children grow up knowing the sound of marching boots better than lullabies. But the war is changing. It begins quietly. Soldiers on the northern front report the same dream. A vast ocean without water, and something enormous moving beneath a sky that is not the sky they know. Priests in distant temples awaken with bleeding eyes, claiming they heard a voice that did not speak in words, but in pressure, as if reality itself leaned close to whisper. In the slums of occupied cities, ancient symbols appear carved into stone walls overnight, too precise to be vandalism, too old to belong to any living culture. Entire villages vanish without smoke or sign of struggle, leaving behind only a faint scent of salt and iron. The rulers dismiss it as hysteria. War breeds superstition. Hunger breeds madness. But when the sea along the western coast recedes for miles without warning, exposing black stone monoliths that no map records, denial becomes impossible. The tide does not return for 3 days, and when it does, it carries with it bodies that are not entirely human. Amid this unraveling world stands Commander Aaron Vale of the Iron Dominion, a veteran of 17 campaigns, a man whose faith died the first time he watched a priest bless a massacre in the name of righteousness. Aaron does not believe in gods. He believes in logistics, terrain advantage, and the simple truth that men kill for power, not for heaven. His loyalty belongs to his soldiers, not to the emperor who sends them to die. Yet even he cannot ignore what he witnesses during the siege of Halveth. The battle should have been decisive. Dominion forces had the walls breached by dusk, and resistance was crumbling. But as night fell, the defenders began chanting from within the burning cathedral at the city's center. The air thickened, as though the world itself inhaled and forgot how to exhale. Torches extinguished without wind. Steel corroded in soldiers' hands. And from within the cathedral ruins, something vast pressed against the boundaries of perception, not fully visible, not entirely formed, but undeniably present. Men dropped to their knees not out of devotion, but because their bones felt too heavy to stand. Aaron did not kneel. He saw in the collapsing arches of the cathedral a fracture in the air itself, a distortion shaped vaguely like a ribcage the size of a mountain. He heard no voice, yet a certainty settled in his mind like frost. We were never gone. The chanting stopped. The presence receded. The surviving defenders were found dead, their bodies arranged in a spiral around a symbol carved into the stone floor, a symbol identical to those appearing across the continent. The official report labeled it a cult uprising. Aaron burned the cathedral personally, but the fire did not consume the symbol. It glowed faintly beneath the ash. Word spreads faster than armies. The theocracy declares the events a sign of divine return. The Iron Dominion calls it heresy and executes suspected cultists in public squares. Edrath, already desperate, begins secret negotiations with groups long believed extinct. Ancient sects, who claim the gods were not destroyed, only imprisoned beyond the veil of mortal perception. And the more blood the kingdoms spill in fear, the stronger the manifestations become. Soon the signs grow undeniable. Children are born with unfamiliar constellations reflected in their eyes. Soldiers claim their wounds close overnight, only to reopen in identical patterns days later. Entire battalions disappear in thick, unnatural fog that smells of brine and decay. Scholars uncover forbidden texts, describing a cycle older than civilization itself. The gods feed on conflict, not worship, not prayer, war. Aaron is summoned to the capital after survivors from multiple fronts insist that he stood untouched in the presence of what they now call the awakening. Rumors spread that his bloodline traces back to a forgotten covenant between mortal rulers and celestial entities. He rejects it until a blind oracle from Loom, captured and brought in chains, speaks directly to him without ever turning her head. "They are not returning," she says calmly. "They are remembering, and you are part of what they remember." As tensions erupt into open panic, cults emerge no longer in secrecy, but in confidence. They do not hide their rituals. They perform them in abandoned plazas, in forest clearings, even within the shadows of palace walls. Their belief is not salvation, it is inevitability. They claim the gods were bound by ancient kings who feared losing control. Bound, not destroyed. Imprisoned, not slain. And now, as war ravages the continent once more, the chains weaken. The first true manifestation changes everything. During a three-way clash between Dominion, Loom, and Adrath, forces in the Valley of Sareth, the sky fractures at noon. Not metaphorically. It splits with a sound like stone grinding against stone, revealing darkness behind the blue. From that darkness descends not a creature, but an influence, gravity bending toward a central point that does not exist. Soldiers from all sides drop their weapons, overwhelmed by visions of past wars they never fought and future wars yet to come. Some begin attacking their own ranks in frenzied ecstasy. Others walk calmly into the earth as if it were water. The war halts in horror. And in that silence, Aaron understands the truth that no ruler will admit. The kingdoms are not fighting each other. They are feeding something greater. Every siege, every execution, every righteous crusade has been a ritual disguised as strategy. The gods do not demand temples, they demand escalation. Faced with this revelation, Aaron must choose between loyalty to his empire and a path that may brand him traitor to humanity itself. Ancient texts recovered from the ruins of Halveth speak of a final rite, a way not to kill a god, but to sever its anchor to the mortal plane. The cost is catastrophic. It requires a living vessel strong enough to contain divine presence, long enough to fracture it from within. The vessel would not survive. As cult armies march openly and kingdoms crumble under internal collapse, Aaron begins to gather unlikely allies. A disillusioned high priest who has lost faith in prophecy, a former Edrathi noblewoman whose family was sacrificed in a failed summoning, and the very oracle who claims to see not the future, but probabilities collapsing in real time. Together, they move toward the epicenter of the awakening, the coastline where the sea first retreated, where black monoliths now hum with a resonance that shakes the marrow of those who stand near them. The final confrontation will not be a battle in the traditional sense. It will be a defiance of inevitability. To break the cycle, someone must step into the fracture in the sky and become the blade from within. And as armies gather once more beneath a bleeding horizon, as cultists chant in exultation rather than fear, one question lingers heavier than any prophecy. If gods are born from war, what will humanity become if it finally chooses to end it?